I hope this will be a pretty short video on how to complete your enzyme lab report. Now, you probably conducted the lab at this point, and you've generated data, right? At 22 degrees, we did this week, and we did 55 degrees, we did 75 degrees. We didn't do a couple of the temperatures that are on the chart. That's okay, we're just not gonna generate data for those temperatures. So the enzyme started out at 0. That was the absorbance that was red. And then at 30 seconds, let's say you got 0.2 absorbance, and you got 0.4, 0.6. Your numbers will be different depending on how you did it. And at 55 degrees, we generated this data, and at 75 degrees, that data was generated. So now, you've got this for temperature, and then you've got one for different pHs. So you'll have one graph with this data, and then you'll have graph number 2 for the different pHs. But you do both the graphs the same way. So now what you do in Excel is you transpose that data, right? You don't put time here. Leave this blank, and then put 0, 30, 60, 90, right? The different time points. Just don't put the time. It'll mess with your the way it generates the graph. But you do need to put in here 22C, 55C, 75C at the top of the column. I didn't start right. Notice I don't have anything here. I could have used that top line, but I didn't. And then put in the data that you have on your chart for each time point, right? There's nothing hard about that. Then to get the graph, right, you select everything, right? This will be blank. You don't select these because there's nothing there. You select that and then go to insert, right? Insert, then you have the choice, right? Recommended chart. So they don't use the term graph. They insert line or area chart. We want to use the line where you see these squiggly lines, right? Those up and down. Pick that. So if I select that one, then I have a choice. I think I'm going to pick this one over here that shows dots on the line. If you go down, after I select it, it shows you what the graph is going to look like before I select it. So if I move it, but here, the graph is generated. And so let's say I move it down here. I've already got another one on here that's done. Well, let's focus on this one. So if I select that graph, now I can add, as long as it's selected, right? Now I can change the chart title. It has the figure legend. It tells me the blue line is 22 degrees centigrade, the red line is 55, and then the green line is 75. But now I need to label this absorbance and the axes, and then change the title, right? Just click on the title up here and put, it should be the effect of temperature on catechol oxidase activity. And now I've selected it, and if I go up here, add chart element, I've got axis titles, right? There's a primary, and then there's a vertical. So if I do the primary, then I click down here, and I can add the title to this, which would be seconds or time, and then go to title, vertical, click on there, and then put in absorbance. Okay, I've already did that effective enzyme activity, put absorbance here, seconds there on this one. Right, so now I've labeled everything. So what happens is when I grade this, your graph, you get a point for the title, you get a point for this label, you get a point so that you have this figure legend, and then the x-axis is labeled seconds. You get points for each one of them, 5 points altogether for this. Now I want to put this and embed it in Microsoft Word, right? All I need is the graph. Okay, hey, I'm finishing this up on my home computer, and so I've got here the the graph I generated while I was in the micro lab when I did the earlier part of the video, and I generated this graph, and I was explaining how you would take the graph, just copy the graph itself, and then open up a Word document and paste that graph. See, this is on the effective temperature on catechol oxidase activity, and then in Word, let's see, you would type in your conclusion about that particular graph. Now, in this case, say the bottom line at 75 degrees didn't show much activity. I'd put that in there, right? If you look at the 22 degrees centigrade, that the blue line went up pretty high, showing that there was more activity at 22 degrees than at 75, and 55 was in between. And then you could explain, that due to the fact that the enzyme becomes denatured at the higher temperatures, then it won't have as much activity. Now, you're going to make another graph, for, say, your the effective pH, and put that here, and then have conclusions about that. Now, all you'd have to do to generate another graph, see, at this point you no longer really need this graph. I mean, you just pick it up, set it aside, and then change whenever we had a pH. It's little p, big H, 4, and then we had what? Little p, big H, 7, change that, and then make that pH 8, and then put in your data here for the 0 time point, Actually, all the 0 time points we had were 0, This was 0, We started out at 0. That'll make the graph look better too. But put in your data you have now for this pH 4, the pH 7. You want to leave this little corner up here blank, then select all of it, all the data, just all the squares, insert chart. So you go over here, click on that, and then that generates, doesn't look good, but that would be, then you have to put the pH up here, you have to label the X and Y axis again, and then copy and paste over to the Word document. And then after you've put in your your graph, and then below it put in your conclusions. It doesn't have to be in one page, it could be 2 pages, but you should have about a paragraph, 3 or 4 sentences in your conclusion for both graphs. You get 5 points for each conclusion, you get 5 points for each graph. Then when you're done with this file, then you would you'd open up your assignment tab, go to assignments, and this has to be done in your lab website, Go to assignments, then click on Enzyme Report, and what you'll see when you open it up is a little box. It says use the data collected during the Enzyme Lab. I'm going to fix that, and add the fact that I've made this video. Okay, so that's what you should do. If you need more help with this, you can get help with this at the ASC or you could just come by my office. But if you do, you need a computer, like a laptop or something like that, right? You have to do this on a computer. I'm not going to do it on my computer. But if you did it at the ASC, you could save the file to a flash drive, or just log on to the course from there and just put the file. So you don't have to print these out. You can upload it to the assignment folder. If you turn it in late at some point, you could email it to me, you know, but you do not, you know, like, even if it's late, you should still turn it in. Okay? Good luck.